So I think you can see my screen okay. So good morning in Amsterdam and good afternoon where you are. My name's David Beckett. I'm a pitch coach and I believe that great ideas need a voice. And I've been working with startups for the last 7.5 years, coached more than 1,300 startups and scale-ups. And between them, they've raised over $340 million, euros rather. And my job is to help them tell their story in 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. They never have more time than that to share their story. So my job is to help them deal with the time pressure, to know what to say and how to say it, and really connect with that audience. And I've also been working with a lot of people in many different countries. First time working with people in the Philippines. I've also been working with other Asian organizations and companies. And yeah, lots of companies are realizing that time for long PowerPoint presentations, there is a time for it, but at the beginning of the presentation, a short, sharp pitch is really needed. And that's when they call me. And I believe that great ideas need a voice. You know, we're in the craziest times of our lives, and new ideas to make things better are the only way we can move forward. So you need to have your ideas out there, heard, understood, and then not be judged on the pitch, but be judged on the value that you're bringing and the idea that you're delivering. So great ideas need a voice. That's what we're here for. And especially you're in this online environment. So what I'm going to talk about is how you can make a great pitch and then how you can deliver that online. You're going to receive a lot of materials at the end of the presentation or the slides, and there's a whole bunch of stuff at this link. I'll give you this link again at the end of the presentation. And you can ask questions, so please feel free to raise your hand or you can ask them in the chat. So from time to time, I'll come out of the presentation and just see if there's some questions. So raise your hand and then we'll take your question. Okay, so let's get started. We're here to prepare you for your time-pressured pitch, and then we'll talk about how to make that online. And the first question is, how many words can you say in 1 minute and remain understandable? Now, this matters because very often as an entrepreneur, you have no time. You're given time pressure. You're asked to present in 1 minute, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. And usually they don't mean 3 minutes and 10 seconds. They mean 3 minutes. There will be a hard cutoff. So if you don't finish on time, you won't be able to finish your pitch. So it's good to know how many words you can say and how many words you should plan to say in your pitch. So it turns out that you can say a maximum of 150 words per minute and still be understood. Now that's very important to know, because if, for example, you were building a 3-minute pitch, I would recommend to make a script. And that script should be somewhere around 130 to 140 words per minute. That's enough speed for there to be some energy, something's happening here, but there's some air around the important messages, which will help them to follow the story. If you go past this, if it's over 150 words per minute, for example, they simply can't follow. And so you can put more information in, but they will understand less. So make sure that you cut down to the real essentials of the story and target, for example, a 3-minute pitch, 390 to 420 words. Now, how do most people create a pitch or a presentation? Well, what most people do is they open PowerPoint or Prezi or Keynote or Slides or whatever it is that they're using. But there's a couple of things that you need to do before jumping into the slides. And that doesn't matter whether you're doing it online or face-to-face. We need to try to get into the world of the audience, and we want to be clear what we want that audience to do. So there's 2 things to do before jumping into PowerPoint. And I'm going to share with you a radical yet simple new approach to preparing your pitch so that when you're on stage, virtually or in person, you'll really shine. Now, the first step is to stop and don't open PowerPoint yet. You need to know what you're going to say before making slides. Now, what we often do is try to work out what we're going to say while we're making slides. But my advice is to separate those 2 things. The first thing is to get into the mind of the audience. Who's your audience? What do they care about? What's on their mind? What's bothering them? And here's a way to approach that. So I would recommend before every pitch that you write down who the audience is for your pitch. and write down what's their biggest challenge, what's on their mind. Are they conservative or innovative? Do they want to change the world or build on what they already have? Are they money focused only, or are they interested in something to do with environment or social issues? And are they theoretical or doers? Do they want to know what was the process you took to get here, or do they just want to know what happens next? And finally, what might be their biggest objection? And this is a key thing to get tuned into, because you might want to put that into the pitch. If you know that people tend to think, oh, well, this won't work because, and you've got an answer for that, then put that short and sharp into the pitch. So this is the first step, taking time to get into the mind of the audience before you even start writing a word in your script or in about the words support or believe. They are thinking changes, but there's no action related to those two things. So we need to get focused on action. What do we want them to do? And think of it as Monday morning at 9:30. What action could they take? Could they pick up the phone when you said you would call them? Do they agree to meet you next week for a follow-up meeting? Will they introduce you to somebody in their organization? Will they even sign a check? What's the objective of this pitch? What do you want them to do? So the second step is to write down. Normally it only takes a minute. What do you want the audience to do as a result of the pitch? And focus on action, not just thinking differently. And that can take you a minute, it can take you a bit longer, but these two steps, getting clear on who's the audience, what do they care about, and then what's the objective? What do you want these people to do? This will steer a lot of what you're going to say in the pitch. Now, how do you create your storyline? Well, once again, you might be wondering, can I now open PowerPoint? But the first step is to put the software aside still. Well, the next step is to keep the software aside. You've got clarity on who's the audience and what's the objective. But we want to use a tool that works like our brain to create the storyline. We want a strong beginning, middle, and end. And the tool to help you is not PowerPoint. See, PowerPoint works very linear. It's slide 2, bullet point 1, slide 2, bullet point 2. But our brains don't work that way when we're creating a storyline. We think very randomly. We think of what happened yesterday, or what feature we're going to add next month, or the new customer we're hoping to sign by this pitch, and so on. And there's lots of thoughts coming through our minds. What we need to focus on is to get the story straight. So don't open PowerPoint yet, and get hold of some Post-it notes. Use Post-it notes to build your storyline. Now, if you don't have Post-it notes, you can just use paper. Tear it up into squares, that works too. But let me show you how it works with Post-its, and you can replicate this with paper as well. So the first step is to brainstorm. Get your ideas out of your head. Think, what's everything I could say, as if you were unconstrained by what do you need to make it happen? And why do you believe that this is a great idea? And I'll give you a tool to help you with this a little bit later. Then you need to take a step back. Ideally, you've got 20, 30 different ideas written down, but then take a step back to identify the big issues. Who's the audience? What's the objective? How long have you got? And select the key topics and the key messages per topic from the brainstorm, and then organize around chapter headings. And let me show you what this might look like. This might be your first rough brainstorm. And you'll notice some chapter headings here on the left: pain, product, demo, unique, team, and so on. And these are pillars of content from the pitch canvas. I'll share that with you in just a moment. Now, many of these pillars will work for you as well. They've worked for many, many different startups in the past. But of course, this is way too much information. Supposing you're preparing for a 3-minute pitch, this is much too much information. So you have to take a step back. Well, who's the audience? What's the objective? How long have I got? And then you think, okay, we're going to talk about the problem. That's for sure. I always recommend to talk about the pain. But you've got 11 things written down about the pain you solve. So for this 3-minute pitch, let's choose 3. Then we're definitely going to talk about what's unique about this proposition. But we've got 8 things written down about what's unique. Well, for this 3-minute pitch, let's choose 1 or 2 things that we're going to focus on, and so on. Decide the topics and decide the content you're going to focus on, and target a storyline that looks a bit like this. The orange post-it notes are the chapter headings, and the yellow post-it notes are the content per chapter. Now that will help you to organize your thoughts. You'll be able to see the beginning, middle, and end, and you'll be able to move things around very easily. No software involved, just think, write, done. Now, there's another big benefit from this, and that is you will save 20 to 30% of time for every pitch that you prepare for the rest of your life. If you try this out, I almost guarantee you that this will save you a load of time for the whole pitching process, because I've trained over 20,000 people and they keep coming back to me and saying, this saved me so much time, it raised the quality, it made me feel more confident. So I'm going to give you days of your life back with this process right now. Okay, so that's the process. Get the ideas out of your head. So firstly, focus on the audience. What do they care about? Then focus on the objective. What do you want these people to do? And brainstorm. What are the things that you could think about telling, and narrow down to the topics. I'm going to talk about the key topics in just a moment, but if you have any questions, we'd like to raise your hand. If you have any questions right now, feel free to raise those questions either verbally or through the chat. So if you have any questions right now about how you start about building your pitch, then feel free to ask. You're very welcome to raise your hand. And if there's no questions, we can jump straight back into the presentation. All right. So feel free to ask at any stage. Okay, then let's take you back to the presentation. So, what do you use to build your storyline? Well, I created the pitch canvas, which will help you. And the pitch canvas is built of a one-pager with 11 blocks of content that are based on many, many interviews with investors, pitch competition jury members, people who listen to pitches all the time and assess them and make decisions about, do we go further in this process? And the pitch canvas is being downloaded 300 times a week. Already 20,000 people have downloaded it. And this will really help you with building your storyline and developing your pitch. I'm going to focus on a few of the topics that are available now, and I'll give you the link in the web page that I've created for you at the end. Okay, so first thing to talk about is the pain. What is the problem you solve? So every good pitch starts with the pain, or clarifies the pain that they're solving, and what is the human result. So try to make sure that you're not just talking about the technical issues or the technical problem that you're solving, but talk about the human result. So for example, I coached a team called MobiPark. They have a parking app. What they don't say is parking's quite difficult. So we used Internet of Things and sensors and open APIs to build a parking app, because that's not really engaging. It doesn't capture people's attention. Instead, what they say is, can you imagine in major cities like Manila and Amsterdam, it takes over 20 minutes to find a parking space. Now, what does that mean? It means that people are missing out on dinner with their family very often, at least 3 times a week. While that person's driving around in circles, looking for that elusive parking space, their family are sitting down to have dinner without them again. Now, that's a completely different way of bringing the problem. Instead of saying, here's a technical thing that we created, we talk about what's the problem for people out there in the world. And that makes it much more engaging. Now, the elements of human pain or general pain that you might be fixing are things like lost time, more cost, complex steps, irritation, lost customers, and bad reputation. So these are the things that you want to focus on in terms of what are the things that the customers are experiencing, that companies are experiencing, what's the pain that we're solving, what is happening to them today. Now, sometimes a great way to do this is what I would call a day in the life of. Here's customer X on Monday morning. They face this problem. It costs them this much time. It costs them this much money. They're frustrated because the number of steps they have to go through, and it's driving them crazy. That's a great way to walk people through the problem, and then you can map that customer journey again with the solution that you've created. Now, spend a bit of time on this because it's really important to get the pain crystal clear. Every single person that I've spoken to who listens to pitches, they always say, I want to know what the problem is that's being solved. The product has no purpose without a problem being solved. Okay, so let's go through some of the other topics in the pitch canvas. Product, of course, we want to talk about what we've created to solve the problem. I would advise, though, start with the pain, then introduce the product. So first pain, then product. That's because you may have heard the phrase, start with why. The why of the product is the pain that you solve. That's why you created it. Without a problem, you wouldn't have created the product. The product has no value. So we need to clarify, why did we create it? And then what have we created? That's the product. And the how is how you've built the business. Then we talk about unique, what's special and new about your proposition, and maybe refer to relevant customers, but I would generally focus on the value that you bring with your product and your service. And the opportunity and the impact. How big is the market? What's the impact that you could make? How far could you go? What's your vision for this business? Have you got traction or validation? So traction is about sales. Have you got paid pilots, partnerships? If you're in business, 3,000 people, make sure that people understand you've done what you can to interact with potential customers. They really want to know this. And if you've got sales, then tell them that you're already succeeding, because people like to be part of something that's already succeeding. Then what do you need? Make sure they know what the next step is. Do you need money? Do you need advice? Do you want introductions within their organization? Do you need a follow-up meeting? What is it that you want as a result of this pitch? What's the first next step? That's the call to action. Then there's two more things on the human side. Firstly, the team. Who will make it happen? Who are the people behind it? Are you working in a team? Maybe you're a solopreneur, but maybe you're in a team. If you're in a team, then tell about who they are and what are their skills, what's their experience, and what's their character. What type of people are they? Are they driven to solve this problem, or are they highly technical and extremely good at executing on technical issues? Are they a combination? Have you got young and old, or are you all young and hungry and going for it? What's the character of this team, as well as the skills and the experience? And finally, and don't underestimate this thing, it's why you. What's your personal motivation to offer this proposition? This is the other thing that every person I speak to who listens to pitches says. They say, I want to know why the entrepreneur is enthusiastic. I want to see the passion in the eyes of the entrepreneur. What's their motivation? Your personal enthusiasm really counts. So the way you bring that story can make a massive difference. And what they tell me is, if you're not enthusiastic, why should I be? So you need to be clear on, what is it that's great about this? What do you get excited about it? What's the coolest thing about your product? What's the biggest breakthrough you've made? What do you love about solving this problem? Don't be afraid to put one part of the pitch into this topic. So just to recap, you brainstorm content on Post-its like this, very random, very rough. You quickly write down as many key words and phrases, one idea per Post-it, and don't think too much, just write. Get the ideas out of your head. And even if you've got a pitch deck, put that aside. Go through this process. You will come up with some new and smart ways to approach this whole pitch. Then build a storyline based on the audience, the objective, and the time available. Extract the most important topics and the most important content and build that storyline with a strong beginning, middle, and end. And then start to say it out loud and see if you've got spoken language or written language. Is this the way you would talk to a friend? Is this how you would explain it to a friend over coffee? So make sure that you verbalize and start to get used to telling this story so that they can follow it. Okay, so that's the process and the content of the pitch. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise now. If you have any questions, then you can just raise them right now. And if not, I will move on to how you open your pitch. All right. So let's go back into the presentation, and do feel free to raise your questions either in the chat or in by raising your hand. So here we go. The next step is about making the first word count, about opening powerfully. And that's important because the first 20 seconds buys attention. And that's, everybody's got two questions on their minds when they start listening to a pitch. They wonder, is this person professional? And do I want or need to know more? Now, the professional part is about having a plan, being organized, taking people's time seriously. Did you know what you're going to talk about? And did you know what you're going to say from the very first moment? Is there clearly some thinking behind it? Have you prepared well? And that you can communicate in the first 10 seconds. And then, do I want or need to know more? Well, we want to find out if there's something of value for us. The people listening to the pitch want to know, will they be more successful? Will they learn something new? Will they get a new insight into something? Or will they get an opportunity, perhaps? So we need to trigger them very early on. Now, there's a couple of ways to do this. And one of the ways is to quantify the problem. And quantifying the problem means to put a number on that problem. So for example, Moby Park, I gave you the example earlier on. When they have their very short pitches, they give you 3 numbers to help you understand the problem. So they would say, can you imagine, on average, it takes people in Manila and Amsterdam over 20 minutes to find a parking space. Did you know that over 30% of all exhaust fumes are caused by people looking for parking? And can you imagine you're going to spend 1 year of your lives looking for a parking space? Now, this gives you a kind of quantified value of what they offer. They are solving this specific problem. So instead of saying parking is quite difficult, they are very specific and they give you a number for it. And notice there's only 3 numbers. That's the maximum I would ever give to anybody in terms of statistics, a maximum of 3 numbers. Once you give people more than 3 numbers, they start to analyze and think about things you don't want them to think about. But here, 20 minutes, 30%, 1 year, we understand it, we get this as a major problem, and then we're interested to find out, how do you solve that? Then another way is simply to get straight into the story. Now, I'm not sure if you can hear this effectively. I'm going to play this video about simply being professional, and I will repeat what he says straight afterwards. So if you don't hear it properly, then don't worry. I will share it. I will tell you what he says. It's the first 15 seconds of a demo day pitch.
Anything, any place, anytime. Why wait? My name is George, and I'm the CEO and one of the founders of Saddle. And our mission is to make your lives hassle-free by making sure that you can have anything delivered to you, any place, anytime.
So what he says, instead of saying, hi, I'm really happy to be here, thank you so much for the opportunity, that's the way that most people start their pitch. Instead, he makes a promise. Anything, any place, anytime. Why wait? So he gives you a promise in the first seconds and raise the question, why wait? Then he introduces himself. My name is George, and my team and I are on a mission to make your lives hassle-free. That's the theme of this pitch, by delivering you anything you want, any place, anytime. And with this example, or the Moby Park example, they both answer those two questions. Are they professional? Absolutely, because they had a plan from the first second. Do I want to or need to know more? Well, there seems to be an opportunity with that parking app. So I want to know how they're capitalizing on that opportunity. If I'm an investor, I see that's a major problem. They seem to understand it. Now let's see what their product is. If you look at the second pitch, he's made us a promise. How can he deliver this? He doesn't even know what we want. How is he going to present us or deliver us anything we want, any place, anytime? We want to know. So these are different ways to open your pitch. Now, what you can do is review your brainstorm and write down your opening 3 to 4 sentences. Now, the challenge is to think, okay, how does this work for me? You know, if I look at those examples, perhaps you think to yourself, yeah, it doesn't really fit me. It's not my style. But that's okay. What's important is not to do it like the examples I've shown you. What's important is to do it in your way, but to have a plan from the first word, the first sentence, and practice that. Make sure that you're ready to go in those first sentences. And the easiest way in the world to open your pitch is to say, hi, this is who we are. This is what we do. We're dealing with the massive problem of this, and we're already in business like this. Let me take you through it. So those first 20 seconds can be very short and sharp, 3 or 4 sentences. This is who we are. This is what we do. This is the problem we're already selling or we've already validated, and then go straight in. Now, the next task is to test these out. And this is really important, because just working out your pitch in your head, that doesn't work. And we need to find out, is it any good? So the way to do that is to share it and get feedback. But when you do ask for feedback, ask these 3 questions. Which one thing stood out? Which one thing did you not understand? And friendly advice for improvement. Now, that's because when you ask people for feedback, they don't really know what to say. And either they say things like, oh, it was nice, which you can't really do anything with, or they say things like, yeah, it was terrible, actually. No, I didn't understand the beginning, and I didn't get the end. I would have said something really different. They become super critical because they don't really know what to say. So when you ask for feedback, ask these 3 questions. Which one thing stood out? Which one thing did you not understand? And friendly advice for making it better. Friendly advice sets the tone. Then they know they're not supposed to cut you down. They're supposed to support you and help you improve. Okay, so do you have any questions about how you open the pitch? Next, we're going to move on to how you do all of this online. So if you have any questions. So any interesting pitch I see from Crystal, any interesting pitch you remember the most and can share? Well, there's 2 ways I look at this, Crystal. The first way is that I look at the development that people make. So I see people go, for example, in accelerator programs from the beginning of the program to 6 weeks in, to 9 weeks through, 12 weeks through. And I look at the development they make. So I can recommend you to check a pitch. I'm just going to put it in into the chat, signature it. So check their pitch. They did Startup Bootcamp in 2014, 2015, and I helped him with his pitch. And he really went through a massive transformation from the point where he said, I have to resign as the CEO of my company because I can't pitch, to being on stage as if it was his home. And he's won pitch competitions since then, and they're really growing as a company. And there was really a pivotal moment. He made a massive change by doing the work to become great at it. Now, another pitch was very short. I was training some students on pitching an idea. And one of the students asked me, does storytelling work in a pitch? And I said, you're preparing for a 2-minute pitch. That was the challenge for them. And I would probably just keep on the problem, the solution, and what you need or why you're committed to it. So instead, he did something which I didn't recommend. So here was his pitch. He said, hi, my name's Malik, and I'm a student in the Netherlands. I came here 3 months ago from Israel, And in those 3 months, I've been homeless. I've been sleeping on people's couches, on people's floors, because I couldn't find affordable accommodation for me as a student. And yet, when I look around the Netherlands, there's loads of buildings which are empty. Now, there's office buildings, there's houses, there's all kinds of empty buildings. So I'm building a platform which connects those thousands of students like me who are coming from other countries and studying in the Netherlands, and all those thousands and thousands of empty spaces to enable those people to find somewhere affordable to live. Thank you. And that was the pitch. So he didn't tell us anything about the technology. He didn't tell us anything about what he's achieved so far. He simply gave us a personal story which helped us understand what's the story, why is he doing this, why does it matter. It was a really great pitch. And I am going to share with you some tools at the end where you'll find that I've got a lot of example pitches. I've got a free app for you, and there are 7 example pitches in there. For example, there's one from a company called Moofree who make milk without cows. I think that's a really great pitch, really good example. So I have a question here from Coco. I'm wondering if there's a way to remember the ideas for the pitch. Sometimes when I try to put it down on Post-its, I find I get stuck, but as soon as I jump into the shower, it comes flowing. Yeah, that's so I'm a big fan of David Allen, who created a thing called Getting Things Done. It's all about productivity, and one of his big things is always have a notepad with you, whether that's digital or it's manual that you can just write stuff down. But when it comes to the Post-its, with the pitch canvas, I've created 11 blocks of content, and in each of those blocks of content, you'll find a lot of questions. So let me just bring that up, and maybe this will help you. So just hold on a moment, and I will bring the pitch canvas up on screen, and I'll walk you through it. So let me share it with you. So this is the pitch canvas, and what you'll see here is there's a lot of questions. So instead of just thinking, okay, what's the problem we're solving, then you see, what is the pain resulting? Can you make the pain a human problem? How many people need this problem solved? Have you validated it? And so on. And you'll find in each of the blocks, there are some questions that will help you think it through. So the pitch canvas is really designed to help you get moving and hopefully give you that shower experience, at least in the thinking. So there's a lot of things that will help you in the pitch canvas to get off the ground. Thanks for your question, Coco. So let me come back to the chat. You're welcome, Coco. So let's come back to the presentation, because we want to talk about how to do all this online. So let me take you to that. So how do we make the best of an online presentation? That's the challenge. We're here in this pandemic period. We're having to make presentations online. I've spoken to investors. How is that working? How are they finding people's online presentations? And there's a lot to do with the setup of the whole thing. You're trying to make a connection with people. So we need to set things up so that we can make that connection. And so I want to run through a number of topics that will help you. I've packaged this all into the online presentation checklist, and you'll get access to this at the end of the presentation. So let me walk you through, and in that presentation checklist, you'll find there's a number of tips on how to set the call up. And then on the second page, how do you connect with the audience? How do you manage questions? How do you put energy in when presenting to a computer? And how do you know if they like the presentation? Well, let's take you through a few of those topics. So first thing is a tech check, 15 to 30 minutes in advance. Just make sure that the audio and video settings are working and that everything's happening as you expect and that the screen share works. Then check your internet speed. And you can go to speedtest.net, and at speedtest.net, you'll be able to find out how fast your upload speed is. 3 Mbps upload minimum is good for video and screen share. If you've got less than that, then you'll need to think about either going to a different place or not sharing your video, which is actually something I don't necessarily recommend. Ideally, you are going to show your video. So you can move closer to the modem or get wired. Then close all distractions. You know, it seems obvious, but notifications off, close all those internet tabs, make sure you close all the unnecessary programs, because maybe you have to share your screen and they might see, you know, your shopping or whatever it is. So keep away from that. You know, my little boy is 6 years old. In a couple of weeks, I've been doing some internet shopping. I make sure that all that stuff is switched off, because, you know, people don't need to see the dinosaurs that I'm buying for him, because he's obsessed by dinosaurs. So close the unnecessary programs, and make sure your video is on. See, sometimes it's easier not to be seen, but seeing each other creates a bond. And we do this with smiles, with laughter, with gestures and nods, with facial expression especially. And, you know, if you have a meeting with 1 or 2 people, you know, in an event like this, it doesn't matter about having your video on, but you can, especially where you're in small groups, I would always recommend to put it on. And if the others don't, you can always ask them, hey, could you switch your video on? Now, maybe they've got it off because they're still in their pajamas. That can happen. So don't push it, but at least ask. And it might be they just forgot. And it definitely creates more of a bond when you have video on. Then camera position. Avoid looking down on the audience and adjust to look at the camera if possible. So I'm actually, and I'll talk about this in a moment, where I'm actually standing, and I can really recommend standing and adjust the camera so that you're looking at it. But even if you're sitting down, make sure you got some boxes under it. If you're looking down on people, it's not a good feeling for the other people. Then tidy up your background. Think about the message that you want to deliver. Is it homely or professional? Do you want to use a virtual background? But make sure there's not too much of a mess in the background. And here's an instant tidy up for you. You can buy a pop-up green screen. These are about $40, $50. And this will help tidy everything up instantly. You know, we're presenting in rooms we were never meant to work in. So if you've still got a lot of stuff in the background, this is a quick fix. And it's really easy, very quick to set up. It will save you a lot of time, and it will really improve the quality of your presentations. Then avoid backlight. They need to be able to see your facial expression. So if you're presenting in a room with a lot of light, then draw the curtains, get a desk lamp, get some light on your face so that they can see your facial expression. And by the way, here's one that went wrong. I'm just going to take a sip of water. So this is a company in the Netherlands that has a facial recognition technology for payments. And I was doing a coaching session, and the guy was looking for signal. He was standing in the street trying to get signal, and he had his phone above his head, and he sort of forgot that he was on video, and all I could see was his ear, the top of his head. He let me show this, by the way. So just remember that you're always on video. Things can go wrong. And another thing to look out for is big faces. I'm going to change that because I look really weird in that picture. So the size of face on camera can make a difference. Adjust your camera so that you have a friendly appearance. I'm just going to take you back to this one. See, if somebody sat so close to you, to the camera, in a face-to-face meeting, you'd tell them to back off. And that's the same with online meetings. We need to make sure that we've got that friendly appearance. So adjust your camera so that you have a friendly appearance. And I would recommend to use a clicker. Now, I use the Logitech R500. I don't have any connection with this company, but I find this clicker really useful. But let me show you why it matters. See, if you use the keyboard to move the keys, you'll hear that click, click, click. When we're stressed, we tend to hit the keys really hard. So a clicker, ironically, doesn't click. You avoid that click, click, clicking when moving from slide to slide. Now, I really recommend this. It stops you having to reach forward every time to move the slides forward. You can focus on the presentation and delivery and not worrying about the technical stuff, or am I pressing the right button? So do use a clicker, and this one's really great. I've used it in over 100 computers, and it always works. So I've got a number of pitch tools and resources. So let me see if we have any questions. So if you have any questions, when we pitch, what sort of action versus thinking can we ask? So for example, thanks for that question, Coco. I think let me give you an example. So let's say, let me give you an example that I've had quite often. I sometimes say to a startup that's pitching at, say, a network event, and there's some investors in the room. And I say, well, what's the objective? And they say, yeah, I want that investor to invest 300,000 euros. Okay, but the investor's not going to come up after this 3-minute pitch and say, hey, great pitch, here's a bag of money. That very rarely happens, right? So what we want is, okay, here's the big goal. That's the objective, 300,000. So what's the first next step? What would be the first step towards that goal? Well, the first next step would be a 1-hour follow-up meeting. Okay, so that's the call to action that you're looking for. If you believe in our vision, come and talk to us. Let's arrange a 1-hour follow-up meeting so we can discuss investment opportunities. Now, sometimes you're not looking for investors, you're looking for customers. So put that really clear. You can say, we're looking for introductions in industry X, or we're looking to connect with, for example, the chief technology officer of company X, or the chief security officer of company Y. So be clear on what it is you're looking for. Maybe you're also looking for advice. If you have network experience, you have knowledge about such and such an industry, please come and talk to us. We'd love to learn from you. So think about some very specific things. Now, sometimes it might simply be go to our website, then put the website really big and really easy for them to understand. Best3minutes.com is my website. You'll find that at the end. Make that really clear what people can do and give them a very simple call to action. If it's a very big call to action, they won't do it. If it's very simple, they will do it. One more example. Sometimes people say, well, I just want them to talk about us. But think for yourself. How do you go about pitches? Do you come out of a pitch and just automatically start talking, as somebody said? Not really. We've got a lot of things on our minds, so we don't do those things. However, if you said to them, I'm going to ask you, could you do one thing for me? Tell one person today about our business, and when you tell them this, and give them one sentence. Now that's very specific. Everybody could tell one person. And if you ask very clearly, could you do this for me? There's a really good chance that some of those people in the audience will do it. If you just say, make sure you tell everybody about our business, it's too general. They don't know what to do. You say, tell one person today this sentence, there's a chance that some of those people will do it. So make it narrow and think about what's the first next step after the pitch. Okay, any more questions? Yes, Kessie. It's a great presentation. Well, thank you very much. I wonder how to pitch by email. So basically what can make us win that meeting where we can pitch in person. Okay, here I've got something for you. Let me just find it because I happened to see it just the other day. Let me see. That is pitching by email. Just please bear with me. Yes, here we go. Okay, so I'm going to share this with you. So this is based on an article by Guy Kawasaki. And Guy Kawasaki said that he had, at that moment, 600 emails in his inbox, and they were all it wasn't clear to him what he was supposed to do. So he came up with a 5-sentence message. And these are the 5 sentences. First, who are you? So introduce yourself. And everything's short. 1 sentence. The next thing, what do you want? 1 sentence. Next, why are you asking me? So why is that person that you're asking the one to help you? Then why should they do it? And I get this quite a bit. Sometimes people say, hey, could you look at my pitch deck? But it's not clear to me why I should do that. You know, that's actually a service, a paid service. Why would I do it? Now, sometimes I do it for charities. I do it for somebody that really doesn't have any money. So why do they need help? Then if they come to me and say, you know, I know you normally charge money for this, but we're struggling because of this. Could you help us? And I invest 10% of my time in those kind of projects. So there's a chance that I would say yes, as long as I know why are they asking me? Why should I do it? And then finally, what's the next step? Very simple. So this 5-sentence email is really useful. Who are you? What do you want? Why are you asking me? Why should I do what you're asking? What's the next step? So if you want to take a picture of this, feel free. It's not mine. It's from Guy Kawasaki. And you can Google this. So this works for LinkedIn when you're making requests, for emails. The shorter your email is, the more likely you will get an answer. Now, I interviewed Daniel Pink, who wrote a number of books. One of them is To Sell as Human, another one is Drive, and another one is When. And Dan said to me, he's a multi-million bookseller, by the way. He's the number 16 speaker on TED.com. He's had something like 30, 40 million views on TED.com. And he said, there is not a single piece of communication that couldn't be shorter. He believes that everything can be made shorter because we always want to tell all the details, but we need to get narrowed down to the most essential. So this would be a way to connect with people if you want to do it by email or by LinkedIn and so on. Okay, any more questions? So I think we're all good. Then let me take you back to the presentation and share with you all the tools that I have for you. And that is here. So firstly, this is the link. And so the link at the bottom, and I'll type this into the chat at the very end, is there's a whole bunch of materials. In fact, let me take you to those materials now. And that is here. So you can download the pitch workshop slides. You can download the online presentation checklist. You can access the pitch canvas. And there's also an offer for you for my Pitch Academy. And you get the audiobook free. So this page is there. And let me walk you through the materials. So as I said, you'll get all the slides, but you'll also find the online presentation checklist that will help you to do a quick setup of your online calls. Secondly, there's the free app. It's called Pitch Professional. It's on iOS and Android. And there you will find pitch tips. There are 5 pitch tip videos. There's also there's video explanations of the pitch canvas, which will walk you through all of those different blocks. And you'll find information about my Pitch Academy. You'll also get some pitch tip cards and a lot of other stuff that will help you. And there are 7 example pitches from clients of mine that I think did a great job with taking the tools that I shared and turning them into great pitches. Then you'll also find my free audiobook. I wrote a book called Pitch to Win a couple of years ago, and it's all the tools that you need to script, design, and deliver winning pitches. And then I've got an offer for you on my Pitch Academy, and this is 5 courses. There's a full pitch masterclass. There's more tools to learn online presenting. You've got a whole bunch of other stuff, also managing your nerves. And I've made this very low price for you in case you would like to learn more about pitching. And this really walks you through all the tools that you need to make a great pitch. And it also gives you a lot of examples from startups about how they pitch the pain, the product, what's unique, how they made a great opening, how they closed it up and had a clear call to action, and so on. So there's a lot of examples that can help you. Okay, and finally, if you want to connect with me on LinkedIn, please do. I'm more than happy to connect with you. And this is the link at the bottom for all the materials. And I wish you the very best. I'm going to stay on the line and just see if there's any more questions. But for now, let's do the formal wrap up. And my name's David Beckett. I'm a pitch coach, and I believe that great ideas need a voice. So if you have any more questions about pitching online, I'm more than happy to answer. So we've had that. So if you have any more questions, feel free. I think we're all good. Then thank you very much for coming along. Let me just put the link for the presentation, for the materials in the chat. So that's where you can find it. And I wish you the very best with your pitches. If you have any last questions, feel free. Shirley, yes, the answer to your question is, okay, we have a couple more coming in. Shirley, you mentioned, can we get your PowerPoint? Yes, the slides, the PDF is in that page. So you just have to go to the page that I've given you and you'll get the slides. And do you see a difference in a pitch presentation expectation between women and men? So there's a couple of things around this topic. And, you know, maybe it's not so smart for a man to tell the answer to this, but I want to share a bit of experience that I've had. So I think the reality is there's one statistic that maybe sheds light on this. Maybe you've heard this statistic before. If there's a job description posted and there are 10 things that are required, if a man has he thinks he can cover 6 of them, he applies. If a woman thinks they can reach 9 of those 10 things, there's a chance they don't apply because they think, yeah, but I don't match it completely. So what you tend to find is that men are a bit better at just saying things with conviction without so much substance. Now that's a challenge because when you're a startup, that is often the situation you're in. There is uncertainty, there is doubt. You don't know for certain that you can create what you're doing. So now an expectation is something, so let me talk about expectation in a moment. But the first thing I would say is do have a focus on saying things certainly. Be clear, even if you have doubt, tell it in the present, tell it we're building, we're creating, we will be, we are doing, not we hope to do, we plan to do, we should be able to. So first, make things very present. Now, expectation, you know, it is a challenge because when I talk about this also with my wife and with my clients, they tell me that you have to go that extra mile as a female entrepreneur to make an impact. And the fact is that the amount of investment that's available, it's mostly in the hands of men and it's mostly invested in men, and that is changing and it needs to change. So I think the expectation probably consciously is not so different so much, but I think subconsciously, you know, it may even need a bit extra to be able to turn those people's minds into something which says, yes, we go for this. So there's a lot of subconscious and unconscious bias. And, you know, I think the ways to get around that is to be highly professional, very organized. And if you've got some numbers, give them some numbers. So let me give you one example from one client of mine. It was 2 sisters. And these are not my words, this is their words. They said to me, we don't want to look like the 2 blonde girls that have a nice business. We want to communicate we are serious entrepreneurs. And they got that response from people, but they already had a business of like 600,000 euros in a year, in their second year. They had a platform for connecting students with tasks like cleaning, for taking out dogs, looking after kids. So they had thousands and thousands of students, something like 15,000 students already registered, and they had done tens of thousands of projects. So what we did was we made it very credible. We used a lot of numbers. Now, I'm not so keen on using too much numbers, but we wanted to have proof. We've got this many, we had this much revenue, we've got these many students, we've got these many engagements managed already. We've got this happening, that happening. So we made some real solid numbers. So I think the answer to that is, yes, there is a bit of a different expectation. The ways to get past it are be very professional, very organized. Don't be afraid to put some numbers in there and, challenge that current situation, because it needs to be challenged. And all the proof, all the data is female entrepreneurs are better at their job. And, it's not me saying that. It's not me trying to, say something that makes people happy. It's just a fact that, diverse teams have a much better chance of success. So don't be afraid to tell people that as well. Be bold and put yourself in stronger position than your male counterparts. So any more questions? Where do we find opportunities to pitch to investors for startups? So what I've seen is one is go into an accelerator program and try to find a relatively light one. I did this myself. I joined an accelerator program a couple of years ago, and that helped me get connected to investors. The second thing is investors are looking for good opportunities. So don't be afraid to appeal to them. Don't be afraid to go to their website, find out what they're looking for, all of those things. But also look for network events. Investors go to events, they listen in on events. So even in the virtual world, find pitch opportunities. And actually the world is very opened up, so you can find pitch opportunities in lots of different places. And what I would recommend is to find some pitch opportunities where it may even not be a relevant event for you, but try to get an opportunity to tell your story. First, get used to telling your story, and then try to find more opportunities to connect with relevant investors. This will really help you to sharpen your pitch, practice it when the stakes are low, and then you can improve as you go. All right. Any last questions before we wrap up? I think it's all good. Okay, so I'll hand over to the organizers. Do connect with me on LinkedIn. Don't forget to get all the materials at the webpage that I've shared with you. And I wish you all the